Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is episode number 130. The show is available live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Ace Podcast Nation, of course, you're home to many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So please do give us a follow on social media, subscribe to that YouTube channel, click the bell for notifications every time we go live or upload a show. If you prefer your podcasts in audio forms, you can get every single show we do in the audio format. Just search Ace Podcast Nation at your favourite radio or podcast platform, and you'll find well over 400 shows. And of course, if you want to keep it purely football, just follow at A.C.E Footy Show on all social media platforms to keep up to date on the latest guests and upcoming shows, particularly with the Euros coming up, where there's going to be some extra content and shows and guests and all sorts. So keep up to date with that. But just as we wait for those various platforms to fill up a little bit, a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports as ever for their support around the show. Black Diamond Sports is a global sports agency representing sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media pages and their website, links to which are in the description and the closing credits at the end of the show. And of course, a big thank you to the sponsors of today's show, Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial. Darren Ralston is giving away a free will worth £140 with any new policy which is taken out at the moment. So please check him out, give him a call and don't miss out on this incredible offer. He's looked after Andy for with various policies over various years, including the critical illness, the injury cover. They are truly top of their field. They provide award-winning service, and we are very proud to partner with such a top-class brand, and we thank them for sponsoring the show. There'll also be a little video ad later in the show from them. But with no further delay, let's get into it. Joining me as ever, the co-host with the most, the goal machine, some would say, the speed demon, the fox in the box. He is still the QPR dream killer, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, Davy Jones' favourite son, Mr. Andy Campbell. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm really good, yeah. Another Monday, another amazing guest. Another North East guest, by the way. I know he's not based in the North East, but we've seen it in terms of podcasts and shows, so it's nice. At least I can understand them. I think that's my main point, so it's going to be good.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, it's the thick Welsh accents you have trouble with, isn't it? I think, but yeah, very excited to welcome tonight's guest. As you mentioned, another top class guest, which very much looking forward to chatting with. He's a former Nottingham Forest, Hartlepool United, Norwich City midfielder, among a host of other clubs, and of course a bona fide club legend at Gillingham. It is Mr. Nicky Southall. Welcome, Nicky. How are you, mate?
Evening, guys. Yeah, good, thanks.
Welcome.
Great to have you on, Nicky. Great to have you on. Like I just said there, Nick, that I think that status of hero is branded about quite easily, you know what I mean? And so we've got someone on here who is a club hero and a legend, because not many people, I know we're going to delve deep later on in careers and what you've achieved and where you've been and stuff, but to go back to the same football club 3 times, I think it was 4 times, but you played there 3 times, you've gone back there, you're obviously living up that side of the world now as well, so what's so special about it? What was so special to you?
It just, when I first moved down, it was obviously coming from the northeast. I moved from Grimsby Town, and I wasn't in the first team at the time because Alan Buckley just come back and he wanted his own players. So I was sort of cast out a bit. And obviously, when Gillingham came in, and I spoke to Paul Scally and Tony Pulis, and I thought of sense like I felt wanted again, and from that moment, I just felt real love for the area and for the club.
So we spoke about owners and things, and you just mentioned somebody there, Paul Scally. He's taken a lot of stick in a lot of people's eyes, you know what I mean, and handled things and clubs and stuff. And you know what? From an outsider looking in, I've seen the rejuvenation probably of Gillingham. You've seen how they were, where they are now. You know what I mean? And owners have to take credit for this. You know what I mean? Because if it wasn't for foundations built, it wasn't for fundamentals put in place as safe as they are right at this stage, especially with COVID hitting. And he needs to take huge credit for that, surely.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, he bought. I think he bought the club for £1 all them years ago, and when I turned up at the stadium, Midfielder, I mean, it was all open-sided stands, the dressing rooms, and everything else. The side of where the wages people and everything. It was just it was run down. It wasn't nice, and he's turned it around. He's built a lovely stadium there, and it's obviously in the middle of Gillingham there. And from when I turned up to how it is now, it's miles apart. And you've got to give him credit for that, because he's done what he wanted. And he wanted to get to the next step when we got into the Championship, about going into the Premier League, and when we went to Wembley with Man City against Man City and the Wigan finals, we took like 50,000 fans there. So the fan base is here. And we just obviously we didn't get that look in trying to get into that next level. I remember there was a share issues for fans to buy shares into the club to try and raise money to move to an even bigger stadium, but that never materialised. So it still might be. I haven't been back to the club in over a year, a couple of years, so it still might be in the running for it.
It's great to know those sides. We've been, especially with the way that COVID's hit certain teams and the way that the clubs have been run previously, and it's just so refreshing for me to hear the good side of it and the smaller 100%. Clubs, because people don't get enough credit. You know what I mean? I'm quite lucky, Nicky. Obviously, where we're. Steve Gibson gets all his credit because he bought the club for a cheap. Like, you know what I mean? Because and he's put the club where it is now, but. Other chairmen have done exactly the same thing. They just haven't got the publicity and they haven't got the reputation, what goes with it. You know what I mean? Because they're not all out of the limelight. Some people name on things and be on the TV and things, but some people like that. And it doesn't make them bad people just because they tell people a story about what's happened and where they're from and how much money they put in the club. Sometimes the story is just there to be told, and I'm full of admiration for him. I'm honestly totally am, and hopefully they can. But really, really impressed.
It's nice to hear, go on, Nicky, go on, mate.
Sorry, no, I'm just exactly, and they're having a decent season this year under Steve Evans, so they're on the verge of the playoffs. So you just never know, they could sneak in. I've got 6 or 7 games left to do with that, and obviously still watch out for the results every week.
Yeah,
there's still time, and like you say, mate, it's nice to hear some positive stories about chairmen, because. Like you so often hear, and I'm from Cardiff, we've had our fair share of interesting chairmen characters and owners over the years, and it's not always positive. So it is nice to hear something a bit more positive, shall we say. So Nicky, what we'd like to do to start us off, mate, just to break the ice a bit, let the viewers get to know you a little bit, is what we call the Magnificent 7, which is just 7 quick-fire questions, and just say the first thing which comes to mind. Nothing too strenuous to start us off. Okay, Nicky Southall, the Magnificent 7. Nice and easy to start. Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Favourite TV show?
Only Fools and Horses.
Classic.
I knew that was coming. That's too easy, Nicky.
Had to be.
I've literally been watching them in the last couple of weeks.
Si, we'll dig a little bit deeper on that question later on. Remind me in about 10 minutes.
I will. I will. I've been rewatching them literally in the last couple of weeks, so I'm sort of halfway through all the specials now. Next question is Hartlepool or Gillingham?
Oh, easy that one, right? Easy question. Yeah, easy. There you go.
Easy.
There you go. Sod the pools.
And this is like a double-winded question, I guess. Favourite and least favourite moment on a football pitch?
Favourite moment was getting promotion at Wembley against Wigan, second time. After the year before, when we got beat, obviously, against Man City 2-0 up for 5 minutes of extra time. At normal time, we went going to penalties and we lost on that. But and that was my favourite moment. And the worst moment is obviously the year before when we were 2-0 up against Man City and losing 3-2 with the infamous 5 minutes of extra time in full time to be played, and nobody ever seen that, and there's definitely never been 5 minutes of extra time.
No, yeah, that's interesting to me. That is.
I watched that game.
That's really interesting to me, though. That is that you had your least favourite moment, then the next season you had your favourite moment, because obviously the goal which Andy is most famous for in Cardiff, obviously the playoff final goal which he scored to take us up, the season before, and even maybe the season before that, Cardiff had fallen at the kind of in the set. I think it was the playoff semis against Stoke one year, and then obviously the next year we finally got over the line. So then the correlation to that really fascinates me. It's just how these things.
I think there's loads of players side, because I spoke to who is going to come on the show, by the way, Richard Langley, and Langer's did the same thing. So Langer's got obviously beaten this playoff final by us for QPR against Cardiff City. And then obviously signed for Cardiff City the season after. So sometimes it sometimes happens that it makes you hungry. For me, it makes you more hungry when you've had a more desire and more hunger to go and get the positive out of football, because you want to go and do it again and again and again and again, and make sure that feeling doesn't stay with you for too long. Because the good thing about football is it can be eradicated very quickly, or not within a year, but it can be eradicated very quickly.
Yeah, it's like obviously. That Man City game, it was like we were so down, and it was a huge game. We played ever so well. We didn't deserve to lose, in my opinion. We were 2-0 with, like say, 5 minutes of extra time, and obviously we brought the strikers off as well to try and shore things up at the back. And once we went into extra time, we didn't have no strikers on the pitch, so we had to fiddle about, and we ended up getting through the extra time and going into penalties. We were hanging on in the end, but so that was obviously a very disappointing moment. It's still have nightmares of it now.
Dramatic,
but a proud moment. But a proud moment, though, Nick, to be involved in such a game, though, because it's quite a famous game, isn't it? You know what I mean? For many reasons. You look at the Nicky Weavers of this world who came to a. Do
you have to remind me of that?
Because no, sorry, I'm not to rub it in, by the way, but you know what I mean. But it's a really famous game, isn't it? You know what I mean. There's so many games which probably spring to my mind that like the FA Cup final with Keith Houghton's, that playoff final, Charity Shield games where Cantona got. You know what I mean. There's certain moments in my life at Wembley which I remember for various reasons, and that's one of them. And you know what I mean? It was. I was gutted for you, because obviously being a Middlesbrough lad, you want those. I was desperate for you that way. You know what I mean? You just know sometimes that it's just sometimes not meant to be.
Yeah, we were massive underdogs, obviously, and massive the clear favourites, and to play like we did, right, basically to the last 95th minute when Paul Dickoff obviously got that equaliser, it was obviously devastating, but. So no, it's obviously good.
Yeah, we won't remind you of that again tonight.
Indeed. So the next question is, who's the best manager you've played under?
Best manager I've played under. I've played in front of a few. I've got to say Big Sam. Big Sam Allardyce. He's fantastic. Didn't leave any stone unturned. The knowledge and his all. The sports science level just lifted me into another dimension of my football career, and especially when I went into the Premier League at the age of 29. You very rarely get a chance to get in the Premier League at the age of 29, and I went in there, and he just taught me and educated me for a whole lifestyle changes, which helped me to play on till 39, which is a benefit, you know.
Yeah, we've talked about.
But we are going to talk about this later on, Si. Yeah,
but we've talked about Sam Allardyce
because obviously I was there the season before when they got promoted. Things that I learned at a Championship club weren't happening in the Premier League at the time, and that's because of that man. You know what I mean? That man brought so many things to English football, which, you know what I mean? And you know what? And the amount of disrespect he gets about the way that his style of his play and the things that he does, but the sports science wouldn't be where it is. You know what I mean? The amount of formations, tactics, and other footballing things that he brought to this country You know what I mean? Wouldn't be there, and
Exactly.
I guess what happened to England wasn't great, but that's another story.
No, it wasn't great.
Sam Allardyce, the manager, is amazing, isn't he?
You got to think. I mean, when I was at Bolton, he brought JJ Kocher in. He brought Yuri Djorkaeff in. He brought Freddie Bobic. Freddie Bobic, you know, it's like Bruno Ngotti, who scored a winning goal in the Champions League final for, I think it was Marseille. So, like, these characters and these players are coming in, and he just gets so much bad press in terms of the way he plays. These players would grace any top teams in the top four now.
Yeah, bring him in though, side, did he? He didn't just bring him in. He got the best out of them.
He made them better.
He made them better, which is just unbelievable, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's just absolute madness. You know
Ivan Campo, there's another one.
And not just Campo, and not just that as well. You know, I've seen Michael Rickett. Michael then came to Middlesbrough. Michael came to Middlesbrough under a different manager, and Michael was a different player because he didn't have Sam to help him out. He didn't have Sam to advise him. Sam got the best out of Michael Ricketts. Nobody else got a tune out of Michael Ricketts like Sam did. Nobody.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I agree. His man management was absolutely first class.
Super.
Who was the Spanish player who had sort of dreadlocks
Ivan
type
Campo.
hair? That's the one. I couldn't remember
Campo,
his name.
Yeah.
But he's a quality player.
He was at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Real Madrid.
It's unbelievable.
Madness.
But I think Big Sam soon got the back four though. He wasn't having these turns on the edge of the box. He put him in defensive midfielder, and he was just totally different.
No.
It was unbelievable on the ball. Dear me.
Yeah, that squad he assembled was just unbelievable. Okay, last two questions. Angriest teammate you've ever played with?
It's got to be Andy Hessenthaler.
I think, hasn't he come up before, Andy? Someone else has said him. I'm sure they have.
It's rightly so as well. Like, you know, I've only came across Andy as playing against him, and for me, it's that born mentality. It's that winner. You know what I mean? That winner inside him, but he just galvanizes everybody around him. But it depends how it comes across. You know, I like it because
just passion for winning. It's just a passion for winning.
Well, it is, and you know, and Nicky, you know what I mean. I know we're going to talk about coaching later on, but when you've got a manager who wants to win just as much as everybody else, it gives you so much more desire, and it just reflects off everybody else, and it's so much better. For me, it's fantastic.
Andy, did you play that game when he actually was playing manager and got sent into the stands at Cardiff? He was playing manager. He was on the bench. He named himself on the bench. He had to go to the fourth official, and he got sent off. Yeah, he got a yellow card sent off in the stands. Then he was getting dogs abuse off the Cardiff fans. So he ran back down, put himself on, then got a yellow card. So he actually got a yellow card. And he didn't get sent off.
That's a good day. It's a good day in the office. That good day in the office.
We were 5-0 down though at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story to tell the grandkids. That isn't it?
That's a great story. That
I like that one. Yeah. And then a final question.
Leeds away.
Yeah. Well. The final question, Nicky, which is one of my favourites always, and it is, in your opinion, who is the greatest Englishman who's ever lived? It doesn't have to be football related, but who springs to mind?
That's Winston Churchill.
There's a hat trick.
We've had that one.
3 in a row, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I named mine, and you know what? Especially, it's quite apt at the minute with what's going on in the world, and especially what's going on in this country.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's nice to remember people who've had such an impact and stuff. And if it wasn't for, and I keep on referring to this, if it wasn't for people putting things in place for this country, none of this would be possible. Cliche and really sad, but it's true. And it's true.
Should we slip this question in now quickly? Just sorry to interrupt you. I'll slip this one in. Reece says, as soon as you mentioned it, how was Ninian Park to play as an away player?
Very loud and daunting, especially
What's for us?
Along that the far side opposite dugout. I just remember the hardcore Cardiff fans there. If you went and got the ball near their fans, you just got abused, spat at, and everything else. So, especially if you were winning, dear me. But I just remember that portion of the ground was really intimidating. And as a player, you sort of like didn't want to go to that area of the pitch.
It's scary though, Nicky, that certain grounds have are notorious for having intimidating fans. You know that obviously that question always gets brought up with me about where's the player den, and I never played at the old den. I'm quite glad because that probably would have been worse than the new one. But
I never played there. I'm glad.
You know what I mean? I'm glad. I watched obviously some videos and DVDs and things what my dad showed me, but the new den was horrible. I remember being subbing and warming up and stood there, and I think I turned around one. When I say young, he's probably 20. He's probably similar age than I was at the time, and I'm not being funny. He scared me that much. I went back in the dugout and sat down. I just didn't want to warm up. He frightened me to death, and I was just like, this isn't how football was supposed to be. You know that.
No.
You know what I mean? Obviously, the team was quite notorious, and the fans were quite hostile with each other. The Cardiff fans weren't allowed many fans, and they were writing the gods at the new den, and it wasn't a nice game, to be honest. It was very hostile, very intimidating, and I wasn't happy.
Gillingham and Millwall sort of got because it's sort of like a rivalry as well, a big rivalry. And whenever I played at the new den, I remember one game just in the warm up, as you're doing your warm up, running side to side on pitch. I just remember looking up, and there was hardly any fans in there. There was just a few fans just looking up, and there was a couple of Millwall fans. And as you stood there stretching off, I just remember staring at him, and he kept doing that to me. And every time I looked at him, every time he just kept doing that. I just thought that I was really paranoid. I just couldn't stop. I was like, get me out of here, dear me. Every time I turned around, even like I was the other side of the pitch, I looked up and he just kept going. Like, oh, Jesus. But
it's intimidating, you know what I mean? Because fans have celebrate anywhere near them, though, did you?
It was that end as well. I ran either side. I scored on the side.
Love that.
Right, so what we're going to do now, for the first time in a few weeks actually, we're going to do some Any Other Business, where we talk a couple of football stories from over the weekend, and there's a couple of doozies. So let's have a little chat about that. Any other business? Which one do you want to start on, Andy?
Do you know we've just been on about Sam Allardyce? That obviously a few people have put in the group chat that I didn't know West Brom played, but West Brom beat Southampton 3-0.
Did they? Indeed, they were on a bit of a roll, didn't they?
Yeah, 2-0 up.
3-0, 3-0 there. So they've given themselves a small glimmer of chance to stay up now. Yeah, which is good news. Sorry, Si.
You got a clean sheet.
Sorry, Si.
Well, here we go. Yeah. I'll tell you someone who's not given themselves a very good chance, and that's Spurs. Their chances of top four are slipping away drastically. But did you know that their loss yesterday means they've lost 18 games from losing positions in the last year? That, for a top team, that is an astounding stat, and you just can't do that, and can you? Do you know what I mean? Like, to lose that many games from a winning position is frightening for a Jose Mourinho team as well.
Totally agree. I look at the last few games where they've drawn against Newcastle, and obviously the game wasn't great. You know what I mean? I listened to Jamie Redknapp, the way that he was talking after the game about Jose's team normally defends really well and plays on the break, but when they're not doing that, and they don't attack in numbers, and they're not very good to watch, then what does... I'm not saying he's no good, by the way. This isn't a slate on the manager, but I want to watch a game and be excited. I wasn't excited watching him yesterday. You know what I mean? He brought Gareth Bale on when they were getting beat 2-1. Yeah, what's the point? You know what I mean? Just don't bring him on. If you're going to bring him on, give him an opportunity at 1-1, give him an opportunity at half-time, give him an opportunity... Bringing on a world-class footballer with 7 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go is disrespectful in my eyes. And I just think... it's probably, for me, it's ever since they got beat by Dynamo Zagreb that things have gone south and gone sour for him.
I think was that the one when he blamed the players?
They were 2-0 up in the first leg, and they got beat 3-0, and the lad got a hat trick. So, Nicky, what's your thoughts on what Mourinho, what he brings to the table? Has his formula lost impact on clubs since your Porto?
Yeah,
Can I just quickly ask you both a question? I'm really sorry, Nicky, to interrupt you there. I just wanted to ask, because I want to put this question in with what Andy said. Do you think some of the issue with Jose Mourinho is that he hasn't evolved the way other managers have as football's changed over the last few years? I feel like he's still trying to play the same setup that he was when he was at Chelsea and at Porto, and he hasn't quite evolved the same way that a Pep or other managers have. Sorry, I just wanted to slip that in with Andy's. Carry on.
Just for me personally, I think he's playing like, especially along that back line, he's playing square pegs and round holes. You know what I mean? He's playing Eric Dyer in there, but Eric Dyer is a sitting midfielder by his natural trade, and he's put him in there, and he's balanced with is it Sanchez as well? He's playing him one week, and he's just mixing that. Especially, it's like the heart of any decent football teams is your two centre backs. That's strength, and you can't win games if you ain't got that strength, especially across that back line. So for me, that needs adjusting massively if he's to, especially for next season, if he's likely to be there. He needs to look at that and get real defenders in. I know he got the boy from Swansea in there, didn't he? But again,
Rodon.
Yeah. And he's inexperienced at this level, and he just needs a proper old-fashioned, experienced Premier League centre half there,
And this is where he's got he's got Alderweireld on the bench yesterday, which Nicky's just said there. You've got a young player there. 23-year-old. He's just left the Championship last year, and he's been thrown into the Premier League in some high pressure games because in Europe this year. The Spurs can't afford to not win something. They've got a cup final coming up. They've got other games coming up. They've had Europa League games. They've had big Premier League games. They've massively underachieved because they've been ahead and they've given goals away. You look at the best side players. Every time they go ahead, I expect them to not lose. They can give an odd goal away, but they should win more often than they don't. 18 times they've been ahead and they still lose those games. That's scary for a Mourinho side because the way Mourinho defends, exactly. I've never seen a Mourinho team defend poorly and just look all over the place. And that's just, Nicky said, experience. You need someone to grab it by the scruff of the neck. They've got an experienced goalkeeper. You need your spine of your team. You've got an experienced centre forward. You've got an experienced goalkeeper. You do. Experienced centre half and midfielder, and that's your Dyer and a centre half, and you should be fine.
Yeah. If you're Harry Kane, Andy, and you're stood there up front looking at that back line, you're going to be going mental in the dressing room. You've got some men there. These are world class players. Gareth Bale. Get your best players on the pitch at this time of the season. In the biggest games, get your best players.
Totally agree, but then
it's not a time for tinkering,
Yeah, totally agree. I didn't at that point say we spoke about Harry last week that if you're Harry Kane now, when you're seeing what's going on in next season, surely your aspirations are far greater. You've got Man City looking for a centre forward. You've got Man United looking for a centre forward. You've got Liverpool potentially looking for a centre forward. You're not staying there. If you stay there, you'd have to knock out. You'd stupid knock out. Yeah, you're stupid.
Here's a question for you, and. He would have been playing in that game yesterday. The second half, United were all over him like a rash. He's looking at Cavani playing extremely well with all these quick, skillful players around him, and he knows Cavani is likely leaving. Surely he's got to look at that and at least consider: do I want to play with those attacking players week in, week out?
Ah, totally agree. Totally agree. You look at the goal. You look at his diving header. You know what I mean? Greenwood didn't even look. He just put a ball in the area because he knew his centre forward was going to be in the 6-yard box. And where was he? Harry Kane would see goals this season in a team like that because he'd have the lot. He wouldn't even need to run around. He'd just get the ball in the box where he wants it, and he'd score goals.
For me personally, I just love watching Cavani's movement.
It's unbelievable,
just watching his movement in that box as a up and coming striker. Just sit there and watch his videos. You can't go wrong in that. For his movement, his experience, he drops in the box, he's onto it. His levels of anticipation is like far greater than any players that I've seen in recent years.
For someone of his age, Nicky, as well, though, and his desire to still work hard at 34, you know what I mean? He doesn't just save his energy. By the way, he runs himself into the ground. You know what I mean? And he's 34-year-old, just turned 34, and he's sure the Greenwoods and sure all these players that he's the main man, and he wants to go and play. You know what I mean? Took his time to settle in. Of course, he did, and but he was always gonna. You know what I mean? Because he's gone in there,
and he's going to make them players better as well.
PSG when he wasn't playing. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, he did the Greenwoods and the Rashfords.
Rashford's going to get better.
Yeah, totally agree. And they look better because of they can have somebody who's a focal point and the speed around them. They look $1 million now. You know what I mean? They've got a real opportunity to be successul because they've got a. Well, I say it on pegs and square rolls, and they've got the right person.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They've got it, and you know what I mean. Man United have always had it. You know what I mean? And they lost their way when they had it taken away.
And this is what I don't get with Liverpool. You know, they had that front three last year, and like Firmino, for me, he's the link of that team. You know, he does so much like defending from the front, his defensive headers in his own box, some set pieces. Everything goes through him. He links up play really well, and like for not starting him in these big games as well, it's like crazy. I just don't get what you know. Get the best players on the pitch, for me.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
my opinion, anyway.
Last thing on Spurs quickly. Craig just asked the question: has Dele Alli gone backwards because of Jose, or have Spurs gone backwards because of players like Dele Alli not performing? What do you think, And?
I think you've got to look at the managers. Have they put the reins on someone like Dele? Have they told him that he's got to adapt his game? Does he go forward as much as he used to? Is he told to adapt his game and be more defensive? For me, he used to be someone who used to be in that 10 role. He'd go left, he'd go right, he'd create things, he'd bomb on, he'd go and score goals, he'd make something happen. That's Spurs making things happen. So for me, I think it's... I don't think you can't just blame the manager as well. By the way, the players also got to have the determination, the desire to still want to be a player and play for Spurs. And you know, I don't think the manager and the player they match each other. I don't think that some players and managers don't like each other. And for me, from an outsider looking in, they don't look like they work well together. Personally,
no.
Yeah, for me as well, Dele Alli was the 10 who was always looking for Harry Kane, who was on the shoulders. Now it's Harry Kane dropping into 10, looking for Son on the shoulders. Yeah. And for me, again, where do you want Harry Kane? You want him in the box. You don't want him dropping deep in there. Yeah, he's had the assists, this, that and the other, but he's a goal scorer. He's a natural goal scorer. Get him in the box, get him in the 6-yard box. Get other people to do that work. And Dele Alli, again,
totally agree.
He's obviously just doesn't suit Mourinho's eye, you know. For me, I'd have him in the team, him and Gareth Bale all day long.
Yeah, John there has just asked, what are your thoughts on the Son incident and the goal being disallowed in that United game?
It's not a foul, in my opinion. You know what I mean? I watched the goal, I watched the game, I watched the interviews, I watched Solskjaer later on what he said. For me, you run around with your arms in the air, you know what I mean? And sometimes you're going to hit somebody in the face with a flailing arm. It's just natural, it's going to happen. You don't mean it, you know what I mean? There's a difference between hitting someone with your hand or your forearm and smashing someone with an elbow. You know what I mean? That's different. I think VAR should never have stopped it. Son didn't need to stay down as long as he did. I think there were so many wrong things with it. But then also wrong with it is... Solskjaer's interview after, he didn't need to be critical of the player. You don't slag other people up. You don't slag other people's players. Say things about not feeding your kids and stuff like that, which I found tongue in cheek. But then when Mourinho made a big thing of it, it just makes a whole mockery of the conversation. And Mourinho is really clever, in my opinion. Mourinho deflected the game and the result and the performance away back on Solskjaer's family, which is clever, but. The fact of the matter was, for me, it wasn't a free kick. I've seen loads of incidents over the weekend. There was an elbow. Was it Fulham? Was it the Fulham game as well, where the ref just walked into something? I think it might have been Traore, and because of size difference, sometimes that happens. Yeah. You know what I mean?
What's the point in VAR though? If the referee checks it, like the ref checked both instances, like. it baffles me, man. Honestly, I just... Like, Jonathan Walters made a really interesting tweet earlier, and he said, to paraphrase, he basically said, VAR isn't the problem, it's the people using VAR who are making decisions like that, which are making it problematic. It was just, I don't know, I thought it was a soft decision, but I want to move on to the next story, and that was Grimsby's Stephen Payne was sent off for headbutting a teammate at the end of the first half, to the point the referee had to chase him down the tunnel to send him off. Nicky, have you ever witnessed anything like that?
Not on the pitch, no, but obviously the Stephen Payne. I know Stephen really well because we signed him when I was at Gillingham with Andy, and it doesn't surprise me. He is an angry man at times. He could have a row with himself in a telephone box, but he listen. That's just emotions. He wants to win. Obviously, something's been said. He's either not tracked back, or he's not done something. Something was said, and he's just reacted. The only time I've ever seen it was with Lee Bowyer, wasn't it? Was it Lee Bowyer, Newcastle?
Yeah, and Kieran Dyer.
Kieran Dyer, was it? Yeah, that's the only incident I've really seen of that.
But that happened. That happened on the pitch, though. But that happened on the pitch. Apparently, I read the story as much as I could yesterday. I read it in two different platforms. One was a paper, and one was just a report on the website. This incident didn't happen on the pitch. This incident happened off the pitch. So if it happens off the pitch, are you still is he still entitled to get a red card? I don't know. I must be.
It was at the end of the half as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, but as long as it happens on the field of play, it's still a. But if it's down the tunnel and it's in the dressing room, I'm not sure what the rules are. I'll be honest. I don't
I think you can get sent off if we've all played in teams that have been in trouble down tunnels, and if you get called out by one of the officials, I think you can still get yellow carded and sent off. It's serious foul play, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not good because obviously. There's still cameras are still rolling, streamed live, isn't it now? Especially now with the pandemic and everything. So there's people watching. So it's just an unsavoury incident, and you probably obviously regret it. He's going to get a 3-game ban, and especially in Grimsby's position, they need all their players on that field at the minute.
Yeah, 100%.
I think they turned around after the game and said that he doesn't think he's going to play for the club again.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the right or the wrong thing to say. I think at this minute, you know what I mean? For me, Nicky just said it there. Grimsby are in a position where they need the best players on the pitch. They need the players on the pitch if they're not careful. So for me to not play a player, I'd play him. And I'd play him for this reason, because he's got a point to prove. If anyone's going to get them out of it now, it'll be Stephen Payne, because he owes that club a massive favour to get them out of it because of what's happened this week. So for me, I'd play him all day long.
Andy, so before we move on to that final...
I totally agree with that, Andy, yeah. You'll get a reaction from it.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry. Before we move on to the final story, about pretty much everybody in the chat has asked the same question to either one of you or both of you, and it's basically a combination of, have you ever wanted to headbutt a teammate, an opposing player, a manager, or have you ever witnessed it in changing rooms or fights? But just a combination of all those questions. Andy, have you ever wanted to headbutt a manager or
listen? There's a few people who I would have. Listen, it's about it's so easy to probably do it. It's harder to not do it. You know what I mean? Listen, Dave Jones is notorious that we had a massive fallout in his office. That things were said between us both, and it wasn't a nice situation for us both to be in. But there was times on the pitch. Obviously, my only red card for Cardiff City. I got sent off for. I ended up hitting. Obviously, we played Crystal Palace away at Selhurst Park. We were getting beat. We were getting beat 1-0 or 2-0, and there was loads of. Crystal Palace were winding Willie Boland up. Willie lost his temper. Willie got sent off. So obviously Willie and I were best mates. So I went over to try and calm things down, and all of a sudden I just got a slap across the face by Sean Derry. So I just seen red mist straight away, and I was throwing punches, trying to get. Sudden I got the red card, and it was only when I got the red card that I just calmed down. I just couldn't believe that I'd let everybody down. I got in such a horrible position that I just lost the plot for about 5, 6, 10 seconds, and that was it. And I regretted every. There's no worse time, Nick, is there, that you're in the changing room sat normally on your own. I was quite lucky because me and Willie were laughing until the manager came in, and then it wasn't funny. But obviously that he was laughing at me, and I was probably a little bit upset and laughing at myself that I'd let everybody down and stuff. But no, there's no waiting in the changing room, waiting for that final whistle on the players to come in, because it's the worst of the worst. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Don't do it. It's not big and it's not clever.
Absolutely.
There's nothing worse as well. Getting sent off and you get sent off and you're in that dressing room, and about 2 minutes later you hear the home crowd roaring.
Oh, that's what happens.
There's nothing worse than hiding. It's nothing worse.
That's what happens. No. And then the manager coming in after.
Move on with that question.
Andy, we'll talk us through that third story that you wanted to touch on as well, mate.
Obviously, yeah. So I watched another football game yesterday, and it was Leicester City playing West Ham United, and after the game, I was watching Brendan Rodgers, Maddison, and a couple of other players weren't playing, and he was very honest that he said that he dropped these 3 players because of the broke COVID rules. They had a party in the house. But it's okay, they're going to be available next week for selection in the game. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because these footballers, and Nicky will tell you now, you've obviously been involved in football now on a day-to-day basis. Footballers now are so lucky. They're in such a privileged position to be where they are, and to have the lifestyle they've got to play football the way. And to break the rules now at a stage of the season like they did, to let their team down, to let their fans down, to let themselves down, the manager down, everybody down, I just think it's absolutely just outrageous. And then for the manager to say they're not playing today, but they're all right to play next week, I just don't understand. Yes, they haven't got COVID, and yes, they haven't been with anybody who's got it, but they've broke rules, you know what I mean? There's got to be, they don't get fined, and it's just, I'm not wanting these lads to lose money, by the way. I just want them to realise and understand that they're in such a privileged position, and they're really lucky to still be other countries. Football was voided. You know what I mean, and they just need to understand that that people would give their left arm at the minute to go and watch a football game, and they're letting everybody down. And they've certainly let people down again, and hopefully, like was just said there about they all 3 play next week, and they give Leicester City fans a reaction and the players a reaction, because they deserve to run through a brick wall for that football club after letting them down this week, because. Obviously, the big game yesterday was the West Ham game. They got beat 3-2, so it had an effect there. And not for me. It annoys me because we all make mistakes, but you can't keep on making them. Other people make them and continue and copy. So it's you can't keep doing it.
Yeah, and just me
not first clever day. Go on, Nick.
Just we're going to touch on what you said there, Andy. No, it just we're on England duty. Recently got sent back. You just can't do it. You're a little bit. You have a bit more professionalism about yourself, and you've got to think about people who are really struggling with mental health and everything else through these times. And if you go out and organise it's just ridiculous. You are letting yourself, your family, and your teammates down, and your manager, the fans, the whole club really, and. They could do with their feelers on there, because for Champions League spots, that could be the difference come to the end of the season. Is it for the Champions League or not, and that could cost the club millions in revenue.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think careful that these kind of decisions by players, that will Gareth Southgate look at this decision in the summer, and will that stop Maddison getting the players in the Euros, for example, because you've got Jesse Lingard scoring 2 goals. Madison's giving other players an opportunity to impress, like the other day, and like Jack Grealish coming back, for me, don't give a manager an opportunity not to pick you. Don't give a manager an opportunity not to play you on a Saturday. Just go with it. It's a short career, it's a short season.
Exactly.
Go and enjoy the summer, if you don't get selected for the Euros, and go on holiday and go and do what you want. Go and break as many rules as you think you can do in the summer, but don't do it when there's fans who aren't allowed to go to stadiums and mental health out there, and it's just not for me.
Yeah. You've got 2 or 3 months to go and get yourself in that England team to be maybe a part of something special in the Euros and the World Cup's coming up. I mean, give yourself a chance. I mean, you could be a household hero if you put that winning goal in the Euros. You know, someone like Maddison on the pitch could be the difference. Grealish, all these players. And you just got to be, like you say, don't involved in it, and obviously more professional, and because we are in a public eye, and you've got to do this, And, for me, it's crazy, and they probably will get fined, I would imagine. But these players now these days are that rich, it doesn't hurt them no more.
Yeah, I totally agree, Nick. That was one of my points that I was going to make to you, that obviously you're involved in football now. The difference between the money, what's involved at Premier League level, Championship level, obviously the money coming out in and out of the Premier League with parachute money and stuff. How does it or doesn't it affect players? You know what I mean? Because money's not the driving force anymore, is it? You know what I mean? Because they don't care the win, lose or draw. They don't care about making a mistake. They don't care about not getting an England squad. Where before it used to hurt. Defeats used to hurt. You know what I mean? Because it was years ago, back in the day, it used to be win bonuses. So we used to want to win because you can earn more money by days. Win, lose or draw, you're still picking up 90, 100, 150 grand a week. Where before it was, I used to be buzzing getting a win bonus in my pay packet because he used to book your money, he used to book your wages up, and used to enjoy getting it. Where nowadays it's just money's not an object, and money's not anymore to go and play well.
Yeah, exactly, and this is where player power now is just taking over. You look at Ozil over the last few years, and Aubameyang at the minute at Arsenal doing what he's doing in terms of discipline, not turning up for training. These players, you can't find them because it's not hurting them, and the only way to do it is drop them. But then you're dropping your captain, your best players. But then the players in that dressing room, within that squad at Arsenal or wherever it is, they've got to stamp down on it, because that's how it used to be in dressing rooms years ago. The players used to manage that dressing room. Any players stepped out of it got sorted. The manager didn't tend to find out because we nip it in the bud. It got sorted in the dressing room, how it should be.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we spoke about this, haven't we? You know what I mean, about players. You know what I mean, Cardiff City. If it wasn't for Cav, you know what I mean, Cav used to demand excellence from everybody. You know what I mean, everyone would be on time. If you weren't on time, he'd deal with it. You know what I mean, and he'd deal with it in the right way. Around your house, he'd tell you're out of order. He'd pick you up by the scruff of your neck. You know what I mean, but he'd praise you when there was there to be praised. And I just think managers sometimes, the good managers, don't need to be there on a daily basis. They don't need to run teams. You know what I mean? They're there to do the right stuff. They're there to pick the teams. They're there on match days and stuff. Like you said there, the Aubameyangs, the other players, for me, they're role models as well. You've got young kids here who want to be aspirational footballers. They want to grow up and be a professional footballer. Well, I want to be a professional footballer, but I don't have to turn up for training because Aubameyang doesn't go to training, so I don't want to go. There's such a real bad attitude and a ignorance about where he was years ago and where he is now. You know what I mean? Because yes, he was a world-class superstar playing for Borussia Dortmund, but Arsenal have made him to another level. You know what I mean? And I mean into a worldwide name, into a millionaire. You know what I mean? So he needs to understand where he was and where he's gone. You know what I mean? Because yes, he might not want to be there anymore. He might want to go to a different country. He might want to go to the Sun. He might want to go and sign for somebody else. But have respect for the Arsenal fans. Have respect for the club.
Could you imagine it, Andy?
Have respect for the players who are in your team.
Yeah, exactly. Could you imagine him doing that if Roy Keane was in that dressing room or whatever? You know what I mean? It wouldn't happen. Or Steve Bruce or what? It just wouldn't happen.
Wouldn't happen.
And this,
wouldn't happen.
I'm saying, like Alex Ferguson, like the golden era of these the young players. He didn't have to manage that. Roy Keane managed that dressing room, not Alex Ferguson.
And I think that's where the teams like the Arsenals and the Spurs, they let themselves down a little bit because What about span of a team? What about leaders? You know what I mean? That you look at Arsenal years ago, about the leaders they had, the Tony Adams. You know what I mean? The Man Uniteds, they had the same thing. Liverpool had it with
Bruce,
you know what I mean? Liverpool had it with the Ruddicks as well, and all those guys. You know, Alan Hanson's. You can go back years, and you know what I mean. Now Arsenal, they've got no leaders in the team anymore. They've got no spine in the team. No. You know what I mean? Everyone's a nice football. Everyone's neat and tidy, but there's no real winners. There's no real leaders in that group, and you know what I mean. And it's such a shame, and it's letting them down. You know what I mean? And the manager's took over. Yes, he's got a good pedigree. Yes, he's got potential, but he's never going to succeed at that club while he's still got players who don't want to be there and don't really want to play for the club. You know what I mean? He's got a huge job in sorting that club out, but will he be given time? Because he left a massive opportunity in Man City, by the way, he would have probably had for life, by the way, because he could have worked with Pep forever, and he would have looked the best assistant manager in the world. Where now he's put himself in a tough situation,
and he would have, if he's not careful, he would probably got the job as well, Andy.
Yep, totally agree. Totally time.
Arteta would have probably got Pep. Man City.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's such a shame, though, isn't it? Because he's gone to a club who he fell in love with. He's gone to a club who he's got an aspirations for, who he's had a good career with. But for me, he's getting let down by players. Fans love him. You know what I mean? They're starting to hear a few murmurs because obviously the Europa League result the other day and a few Premier League results. But that's down to players. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's players, and unfortunately, you know, I mean, all the comments in the group chat there are negative about money. Because they're all right picking the money up.
Yeah.
Are they all right putting the work in?
Donna made a great point about Fergie there. She said one of the reasons why Fergie was such a legend was he wasn't afraid to sell players, no matter how big they were, if they stepped out of line in whatever way. He sold Yep Stam, he sold Roy Keane. It didn't matter who you were. Yeah, didn't matter. And in fact, he sold Van Nistelrooy when Van Nistelrooy was still banging in. Yeah,
David Beckham. Yeah, doesn't care.
He sold Pogba when Pogba was a youngster. You know, highly rated youngster at that. But he didn't like his attitude, and there was a few other things. He sold him. The list is endless. And I think that meant that kept other players in line, didn't it? Because if you're seeing the likes of all those players we just mentioned being sold, then you know that if you step out of line, then you're going to be sold as well. So you've got to make sure that you're doing everything that you should be doing. It's difficult. I think it is. I think it is more difficult for managers in 2021, just because of social media and the amount of money the players get paid. But Arsenal are suffering long-term damage because they're not dealing with these issues that they're having with certain players. And they have to address it because, a few years ago Arsenal were happy with just getting a top 4 position. Are they going to now in a couple of years be happy to just get top 6? How long do they let the slide continue before they say right, enough's enough, we need to address it?
Well, it's business, aren't we? And results surely have got to dictate how. If he keeps his job, you know what I mean? I'm not saying he's doing a bad job, but he's got Europa League, he's got an opportunity to do well in that, but they're drawing 1-1, they've got an away goal against them. They've got to get in the Champions League, or they've got to get in the Europa League. They've got to failed, and at the minute, they're not going to get in any with the way that things are going.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Nicky, what's your very first football memory? Your earliest football memory? What was the first time you remember falling in love with the game?
The first is going to Weston Park, obviously being Borough lads, and with obviously Andy, watching for enough Middlesbrough play Liverpool, and I was 5-year-old. That was my first ever game. I was just hooked on that. I was just watching. I was just fixed with watching Ray Clements in goal, and just sat behind where he was, and I think it was 1-1 that game. We drew 1-1, and from that moment, that was me. The atmosphere was amazing. I sat just above the old chicken run at Spa.
Yeah, funny, Nicky, because we had Bishy on last week, and obviously we spoke about going to Ayresome Park, and it held so many good memories, didn't it? You know what I mean? It was one of those places that you go, people go on like, the Cardiff fans go on about Ninian Park, and so much atmosphere and so much. They have to hold so many memories, that you go to these new stadiums, you go to Riverside, you got the Cardiff City Stadium. Yes, they're good because football had to evolve to create more money, but the atmosphere is nowhere near close to where it's ever been. Or wherever. Football was so much fun, so much fun.
Yeah, especially when we had the Holgate end, didn't we? And when the goal used to go in that end, it was just kind of you just get dragged along with the fans, and you end up from the back, and all of a sudden you're at the front. And obviously, with the health and safety, after the Hillsborough disaster, obviously something had to change with these with the safety barriers and everything. Because I remember me as a kid really getting quite squashed at the front of that Holgate end.
Bernie there score his goals and stand on the Holgate end and at the fence. You know what I mean? I've got my dad watches all these shows, by the way. I don't know if he's watching. Darwin against Aston Villa. You know what I mean? That was a Sunday afternoon. I remember that game. Just these kind of memories, though. You know what I mean? That when you watch these kind of players, then you come across them within the football circle. You know what I mean? It's surreal, though, Nicky, isn't it? That you stand there on the stadiums and watch these kind of players, and all of a sudden you meet them in normal people, and they're just, you know what I mean, they're very talented normal people, you know what I mean, and they're being very good managers, coaches, players, etc. But they were just and I'm not ashamed to call them. I idolised them.
Exactly. I mean, when you just walk to the ground, with your parents, and it's like the atmosphere years ago, all the streets leading to Ayresome Park was just unbelievable. And my aim was to play at Ayresome Park. I never did as a professional, but I played for Middlesbrough boys at Ayresome Park. Going through the ranks, and just to play at Ayresome Park was just.
That was one of my problems. No, I wouldn't say regrets. Probably one of my only disappointments that Middlesbrough decided to go to a new stadium, because I really wanted to play at Ayresome Park. I'd always said to my dad that I'm going to play at Ayresome Park. I want to score the Holgate. I want to make you proud and do blah blah blah. And obviously the season I signed was the last side then came, and it was amazing. You know what I mean? But I always wanted to play at Ayresome Park, and obviously I was very lucky that Middlesbrough used it as a training ground while Rockcliffe was getting built, which was great. And so, you know what I mean, the amount of times I think I pretended to score in the Holgate and celebrate like Bernie, and I was living the dream every day. It was great. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I used to love watching Dave. Is it Dave Baird, striker?
Ian Baird.
Ian Baird. Was it David Baird? Ian Baird, sorry, Ian Baird, yeah. I came across him. He was Sutton United's assistant manager, and he used to be proper.
Oh, he was, yeah.
Centre forward. You talk about people. You could talk about people elbowing, headbutting. He was probably one of the worst on the field. What he used to do.
Yeah, totally agree. He was. He was a hard player.
I didn't recognise him actually.
Yeah. I didn't even realise he was involved in management.
Yeah.
Didn't even know he was involved.
Yeah, when I was at Maidstone United as assistant, I was assistant manager at Maidstone United about 3-4 years ago, and we were playing Sutton away, and they were beating us 1-0 and whatever. We came back and we won 2-1, and he started kicking off. I didn't recognise him. He had a beanie hat on, and I gave him some stick back, and the next thing he stood up, took his beanie hat off. I went, "It's Ian Baird, he's a nutter." That didn't involve him no more. You're my hero.
Yeah, I bet that calmed him down quickly.
I can't read
quality.
Didn't go near him.
Nicky Cade asks...
that was my first... Anyhow, it was Liverpool.
Excellent, yeah. So that Liverpool was your first memory. And by the way, Ray Clements, what a goalkeeper. Yeah. One of the greatest.
Yeah, ever. I know.
Cade asks there, Nicky there, what's your favourite football shirt that you've swapped with a player after a game?
I swapped with Gareth Southgate, because obviously when we played Middlesbrough away, when I was at Bolton, we do 1-1, And Gareth Southgate was obviously him being the England manager now, and me being a Middlesbrough supporter. So we both swapped shirts. Swapped shirts with Craig Bellamy as well when I was at Newcastle, when I scored for Bolton at Newcastle, which was a good one. He probably got my shirt in his dog basket.
Some good shirts there, though, mate.
Gavin
Gavin asks, what age did you start playing football, and when did you first sort of get spotted and into that side of it?
I played from the age of like 7 and 8 year old, and I first sort of got noticed when I played for Martin. Andy will know Martin was one of the best football teams around the local area, Martin. And then I went to Nunthorpe with a few of the boys. You probably know Andy at the time at Middlesbrough. Went on to make it, and that's when I got scouted to go to Newcastle. I went there as a schoolboy at Newcastle for probably 6 months in between. Obviously school, and then I didn't get taken on, and I ended up signing for Darlington under a scout there who was called Jack Watson. I don't know whether you come across him, Andy, but it was a scout called Jack Watson years ago, and he was quite famous in the area, and he took me to Darlington as an apprentice.
Thing is, on Nicky, what's tell everybody about Martin Juniors, because Martin are obviously in their history. They brought through, haven't they, just some absolutely ridiculous names. You've got the down in Ben Gibson, yourself, me. I'll put myself on on that list. David Wheater, Michael Brown, Lee Matthews, Jonathan Hogg currently plays for Huddersfield Town, I believe. You got Spike, Graham Lee, Graham Murty, ex-Rangers manager.
What about Heaney?
Jamie Pollock as well. Yeah. Jamie. Sam Russell, goalkeeper.
Jamie,
Grimsby Town.
Jonathan
Andy Collett.
Was Phil Stamp there?
You know what I mean? And that's it.
Stampy
played there as well. I think he's been coaching there as well. Full circle. I think his kids
Neil
are there
Heaney.
as well now currently. So Heaney was there as well. Heaney was there as well. Yeah. So there's listen, and I'm not exaggerating.
We were in the same team.
A football club. Yeah, that's a football club, Neil, Nicky, isn't it? Who just has brought through some, and the club's evolved. It went from one pitch to Hall Drive now, which is what I think there's 5, 6, 7 pitches under Keith and Gary Sykes, and Keith and Gary are both still fully involved in it. They started it. Obviously, Keith's the dad. He started it. He founded it. Gary's now took over, and it's just it's a football club which is so special.
Years ago, unbelievable. I mean, talk about Paul Gascoigne when he was a kid. He came through. I think I can't remember the club he was at in Newcastle. But a lot of players come out of I think where Paul Wallsend Boys Club, wasn't it? Yeah, a lot of players come through that system. So these for youth football and whatever, it is what you say is like the North East is a hotbed for like footballers coming throughout the country and throughout the world when you think about it, you know.
Well, we said this last week, didn't we? We said about the North East, about bringing through these kind of players. You know what I mean? The scouting networks that clubs were bringing scouts to the North for years. They got Neil Maddison, Alan Shearer, and other players. Other teams were doing it to get players over there, and it's been a hotbed for young footballers for a very long time, and it's carrying on because of the competitiveness of the league. We have a junior football league here is the best that I've ever seen. You know what I mean? The standard of it, the standard of players, the standard of coaches, the standard of referees, everything is so good, and the foundations are there. The league's in place to help these players get through. You know what I mean? I'm not a huge fan of academies. You know what I mean? The way that they can go and sign players at a really young age. I like them to go and play as much as they can, but that's just my own opinion. But I want them to go and play and go and enjoy it, and then go and sign for clubs at 12, 13, 14. I'm happy. But for me, at a certain age, just go and play, play with your mates and go and enjoy it a little bit.
Andy, when we were obviously a younger age, there was no academies and everything that going on. We just had to rely on, like you say, playing for your Saturday or Sunday thing, you know, to get scouted. Nowadays, like you say, you can go to a Cardiff and go from the age of 6 or 7 right through to the professional level. You can stay at that club for years and years. But we went there and we played, like you say, we mates and with people that's not as good as you, but you still enjoyed it. I think coming from the background of Middlesbrough is not the most affluent area. We all know that in the areas. And I just think the passion them players, young players have, they just want to make things better for themselves and for the families.
Totally agree. Second worst place to live, apparently, Nicky, Middlesbrough, in the country. You know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah,
listen,
well,
you know what I mean? I always said to my parents, I always said that I wanted to do well for everybody to, you know what I mean? I was hard
exactly.
and they did their best to get the best stuff from me. But I always wanted to better myself and being a footballer and give my kids the best opportunity to live in life. But I tell you what, there's an opportunity through football which people are getting, and it's I like you just said there, Nicky. You know, I didn't sign for Middlesbrough until I was 14. I'd played for my school team, which was great. I played with my mates. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. Some of them couldn't even kick a ball, but I loved it. We won, we lost, we weren't very successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin team was excellent. You know what I mean? I had Woody, I had all these players, and we were very good. We won everything. We didn't hardly lose. And then we played for the district, I played for Langbar because I went to school in Unthorpe. Which wasn't the strongest of teams because Middlesbrough was a bigger area than what we had. We only had a couple of schools, but we did well. We travelled the country because we were winning games, and it was really enjoyable and really, really successful time. But I'm glad I had all this variation instead of, like you just said there, Nicky, that you can go and sign for a club, say Cardiff City, a 6-year-old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 10 years. 10 years is a long time to stay at a club before you start playing professional and competitive games, you know, and try and be a player. And if you get released at 16, it must be heartbreaking, you know what I mean? And where'd you go from there? You know what I mean? Because if you've been at a club for 10 years, it's...
And what probably ends up happening is a lot of these players who are going into Cardiff are teammates of you. If we go in there, they're coming in from different areas, so if they get released, they go back to a different part of Wales, whatever. But when you're playing in your Sunday league or your Saturday teams, you're playing with very much local boys, and they are actually become your mates. Probably a lot of them for life, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Touch on Nick, which is obviously a funny point, is nicknames in football. So, is there any funny ones that you've come across?
There's a few. There's a few.
Any of you?
I've got Trigger myself. I've been called Trigger for all through my career, but but there's a few.
There's a story what goes with this side because I got a good friend in
Nicky's.
Nicky's.
You've been told a few stories then, yeah.
Yeah, so Denny texted me the other day and said, I'm so glad you've got Nicky on. Nicky's a lovely lad. Grew up with him, played with him in certain teams, etc. He said, can you ask him the story about when he was still wearing it and he burnt himself? Hopefully he still remembers it.
Yeah, well, so we played at home for Hartlepool, and the last game of the season, and I think it was me and Nicky Peveril. Do you know Nicky?
I know Nicky. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up getting beat that game. It was 9-1. I think we got beat 9-1 at home last game of the season. Players were in holiday mood, and anyway, we come back after the game. Manager was going crazy after the game, as he would do, and so gets home and quickly, as I like to eat, jumps in the bath. We didn't have a shower; it was a bath at the time. So I don't think showers were about then, but quickly jumped in the bath. I thought me mum had ironed my shirt, so gets ready. Taxi turns up, beeping. So I've got my trousers on and my shoes and that, and my mum's still ironing away the shirt. So I quickly put it on, do my hair. The taxi's beeping outside. I've looked in a minute, I just see a big crease right along along my chest. I've said, I can't go out, I've got a big crease, man. I thought you ironed it. And so the iron's still on the side, so I thought, give us the iron. So I got the iron, and I just started doing the iron. And the crease wouldn't go. The crease wouldn't go, so me being me, I pressed the steam. I tried to get rid of it. As I pressed the steam button, there was a massive water blister came up. And I had to go to hospital. I didn't go out. It was a massive blister burn. So we just beat 9-1. Just beat 9-1. I got a big water blister. I was in hospital on the Saturday night. What a great day that was.
Jeez.
Someone in the group chat remembers that game quite apt, Nick. I think it was a Plymouth at home, lost 8-1. Yeah, that wasn't a very good day for Nicky.
It was Plymouth, yeah.
Nicky Southall that day, was it?
No, it was. No. And I think it was Paul Bolton who played for Hartlepool. He scored a hat-trick as well. And Mark Patterson, who was at Gillingham with me, he played in that game. He often reminds me of that. Yeah. I think a lot of people will remember this funny stories from myself is when I was in Hartlepool again, the hubcap story. I don't know if anybody told you that one.
I've got that one written down, Nicky, and
someone said something about this in the chat earlier.
I'll read what he said. I'll read what he said before you tell the story. So this is word for word what Denny said. So, and the time he changed his car wheel and tightened the nuts by hand and drove the car after it. Tell us the story, Nicky. Tell us the story. I'm intrigued.
I lived in Hemlington at the time. My first car. You're always proud of your first car, aren't you, when you get one? Mine was a Ford Fiesta 1.1 Popular Plus.
Good that.
It was mushy green. It had a black primed bonnet, so it looked spectacular. But I was proud of it. It was first. I'd saved up about £1,000 for it, and for my birthday I got some hubcaps. Put them on, lovely, you know. It made the car look like a proper roadster in my eyes, anyway. A couple of weeks later, I noticed the hubcaps were missing. And being in Hamilton, I thought somebody's nicked them. So I bought another set, and then I noticed again another couple of days later, went missing again. So I'm not having this. Like £30 pop, you know, these hubcaps. So I said, okay then. So I put them on, but I super glued them on, so they weren't going to get nicked. Anyway, so I super glued the hubcaps on my car. They're not getting nicked. So going to training. No, it wasn't going to training. We were going to a match on a Saturday. Just going down the A66, just outside Gillingham. Next thing, flipping blowout. So I pulls over just outside Gillingham on the side of the motorway, blowout. So it opens the boot of my car, gets a spare wheel out. Anyway, go to the wheel. I couldn't get the wheel off because of the hubcaps. I couldn't get the nuts off because I super glued the hubcaps on. So next thing, I'm sat beside the road, flipping the AA out. So I got the AA out and put the car on the back of the AA van. I turned up the Hartlepool police car park. About 25 minutes before kick-off. I was in the 25 minutes before kick-off on the back of the AA van, and he couldn't get the hubcaps off. My dad's a joiner, and he came down with a chisel and he started hammering it off while the game was going on. He changed the tyre for me. Yeah, mate.
This is comedy gold. This and right.
Oh God!
He sent me 3. I didn't ask for any of these. These was just what Denny sent to me. So I've got to thank Denny for. Hopefully he's watching. By the way. If he's not, I'm going to send him. This is the final one, Nicky. So he's put how did you feel when Gary Brabham got you in a headlock during the game and then started running off, punching you in the face?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Flipping heck, he's an animal in Hartlepool. I was playing right wing at the time. I ran, he's quite big, he's a stocky player, and he's Brabham.
He was, Gaz Brabham, yeah. Big lad.
Yeah, I've just nicked the ball in front of him, and he sort of tripped me over, went down, and the referees come over and booked him. Next thing, he got me in a headlock, and I couldn't breathe. I actually couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. I was only 18. Honestly, I was going green. I really thought I was going to die on a football field. But he got me in a headlock because he was a bouncer. I think he was doing a bit of moonlight bouncing on a weekend. But the guy was an animal, absolute animal. So
it's a great story. When Denny told me, I was trying to find the video of it, but couldn't find it anywhere. Would have been hilarious to see it.
No. Yeah, no, it was scary. Yeah.
Some great stories on Nick. Obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
You might have been playing actually. I've got one story for you. I think it was when you might have been involved when Middlesbrough played Bolton in the final at Cardiff. Were you there at the time?
Oh no, I got sold by then. But thanks, Andy, won a cup. Still hurts me.
Right, yeah. Well, obviously I played for Bolton. And, yeah,
I'm glad we won though. I'm glad we beat.
Anyhow, we played. Yeah. We played Crystal Palace on the Saturday, and so we were at Selhurst Park, and we've got a penalty. I took the penalty. The keeper saved it, and he moved off his line, so I retake it. I've hit the next one, hit the crossbar, went over. So I missed. Technically, I missed one penalty, but missed two in the space of about 2 minutes. So I got tickets for the final at Cardiff. So straight after the game, in my car, straight down the M40, just going down to Cardiff. Anyhow, I'll get a blowout again on the motorway, but it's pitch black. I was thinking, like, what's going on here? Like, I've got a TT, opened the boot, jacked the car up. I couldn't really see much of what was going on. Anyhow, I got the car out in such a rush because I wanted to get down there for like before the game, like on the night. With the atmosphere, I wanted to sample the atmosphere the night before. The game was on the Sunday actually, but I wanted to be there for all the atmosphere. Anyhow, I'm jacking the car up. I'm waiting for like cars going by so I can try and change. To find the jack up point. I've jacked the car up, and I jacked the car up on the wrong side. I've jacked the car up on the wrong side. So I've jumped in the car in panic. I've drove the car off, and the jack's gone straight through the footwell of the car. And I had to get the AA out again. So I arrived in Cardiff about 1 o'clock in the morning. 1 o'clock in the morning, and the back of the AA van again. I couldn't believe it.
Nicky.
What did the AA guy say when he seen the jack through the floor of your car?
He couldn't believe it. Look, I was in that much of a rush, and I was trying to be in between car headlights, and I was on the hard shoulder, and I jacked the car up the wrong side. So again, I got my car and as I drove off to try and get the jack off, because I was doing it, I was quite scared on a hard shoulder. There's all these lorries and the jack is just going straight through me car. brand new TT. Oh God.
Oh dear.
I'm crying here, by the way. I've never laughed so much in my life.
So you can see why over the seasons I've got a few name called triggers, and that's why I like it.
I was just about to say, Nick, that names of those three stories, that name is well justified, by the way. So
I was young and
Quality.
naive, I've got to say. Very young and naive.
Quality.
I got
Love
asked
it.
to do a book,
Love
actually,
it, mate.
on Trigger's jokes, on Trigger's journey. So,
You could, I mean, I'll tell you what, it'd be a bestseller. Be a bestseller. Be a bestseller. One question that I want to ask you, a serious question about football, about leaving the area. That did you have to leave the northeast to be that advice would you give to people? Because there's young people who watch this, there's young players around the world who don't always make that step and that jump to move away. You know what I mean? So how important is it to move away and get out your comfort zone, so to speak?
Yeah, I just think it's having a little bit of courage to do that. Obviously, you're at home, you've got your home life, your mum and dad and your family, brothers and sisters, whatever. But for me, it was a case of seeing what was out there. You know, I'd just been in that bubble of being in around Middlesbrough in the area and seeing, like you say, it wasn't the best area in the world, and it wasn't the worst, you know what I mean? So, but just to get out there and see what's out there as a young player, and to meet, to play at different grounds, meet different managers and players, and my wife traveling with me as well, and she's meeting other players' wives, and for me it was a journey that I actually adored, and I loved it, and I always loved Middlesbrough, and it'll always be a part of me. But there's actually nicer areas in the country to go and live and to see, you know. And I'd never really wanted to go back after that. Seeing obviously down east and in Nottingham when I was there, and up in Manchester when I was there, so it just opened my eyes a little bit more to life, really.
The world's bigger than Middlesbrough, and I think that's the point that I say to a lot of people and to a lot of other people who live in a certain area. The world's bigger than Cardiff, the world's bigger than Middlesbrough, the world's bigger than a place. And if you want to aspire to be something, London. You know what I mean? Because another point would be, would you have made it to the Premier League if you hadn't moved out the northeast?
Probably not. I think if I'd stayed in the northeast, Andy, I think I would have just ended up drifting out into the local non-league scene. I think it actually made me as a person and as a player, a human, really. You know, to live away from your family for 20 odd years, and I get as much as I can to Middlesbrough, but obviously with COVID, I haven't been back to Middlesbrough in over a year. I haven't seen my family in over a year. You know, and it's difficult to take at the minute.
And that's the thing, Nick, isn't it? You know that it's heartbreaking to hear that, because you know I know how much your family means to you. You love the area, coming back. You know what I mean? You've moved away, you moved out, you've evolved as a person, a human being, a footballer, a family man. But home's where the heart is sometimes, isn't it? And not being able to say, you know what I mean? We've all been there, and to share certain things at this time of your life and the world, and at this time it's heartbreaking, and it's not nice to see. And hopefully soon that you'll be able to see the sunny parts of Middlesbrough again very shortly.
Yeah, let's hope so. Fingers crossed. And let's hopefully we all stay safe and we get through this through the rest of this summer, so we can go and visit people and go on holidays and do the nicer things that we've been taken away from us, you know. And
totally agree, Nick.
Just sitting indoors, just doing nothing.
Yeah, totally agree. One thing, Nick, I want to talk about your cooking, and I want to talk about your some of your posts. If you don't follow Nicky on social media, by the way, obviously delicious things in the world from the northeast of England is obviously the Parmo. You know what I mean? My dad's put that in his in the group chat there.
Oh, yeah, I've made that a few times.
Nicky himself has posted a few pictures on social media of his own cooking, and I comment every time, by the way, because they look absolutely to die for. They look absolutely amazing. Yeah. So, is that something, Nick, that you miss? So you try to replicate it just for a bit of fun, but just because you enjoy eating them as well? Is that why you do it?
Yeah, I just think I needed to, with lockdown and everything. I just needed to do something a little bit different Saturdays. That makes sense. There was no
Yeah, no,
sport
totally.
on. There was football shut down. Like you just sit there and watching box sets or movies that you've seen 20,000 times. I just wanted to do something a little bit different, and I just decided every Saturday I wanted to make a theme of. So we'd either have a Mexican night, an Indian night, a Chinese night. I wanted to just touch things up, an American night, surf and turf, and so I decided to take it on board and try it out, and it's come out okay, to be fair. And nobody's died of food poisoning yet, so that's
That's a bonus. No, but
handy to know.
listen,
But
if
enjoyed
anybody
it,
does
and
follow Nicky, or you just started following him, go and have a look back at his old photos, his old tweets, because they look top drawer, by the way. You know what I mean? Nicky should bring a book out of recipe books and joke books. It would be the best seller at the minute, mate, I tell you.
yeah.
It'd be an unbelievable seller. Just a quick one to everybody
But
in the
then
group chat if you want
obviously I had to
to.
do the Parmesan as well.
Oh yeah, pretty defo. If anybody wants to put any questions in there, and Si's having a few problems where you want to put some questions in, I will read them out, and then we'll wrap up if anybody asks any questions. So, Nick, we've got a question from one of your ex Hartlepool followers. I think he said when at Dover season before you chartered a plane up him. Is that correct?
What's that? Sorry, I'm sorry.
When you were at Dover season before last, you chartered up a plane to Teesside for the Hartlepool game as a club. Did you fly to Hartlepool for the game?
Yeah, the chairman did.
Jeez, good going
Yeah, we
for
flew
a
to
football club.
Hartlepool. Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think the chairman knew somebody within for Biggin Hill or whatever, so we flew from Biggin Hill to Teesside Airport, and just made sense because the trains were different. We generally travel by train to all the northern away games, but to get to Hartlepool, we had to do 2 or 3 different trains. We had to get one to Newcastle and to Darlington, and then you have to get another one from Darlington to Hartlepool. So it just made sense. And to be fair, we left Biggin Hill. I think it was 11 o'clock. We landed at Teesside 12. Got to the ground for 1. We beat Hartlepool and then flew back. I was back in Kent at I think 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. It was crazy.
Good, that's decent. That's good going. That, yeah. Gavin Randall asked Nicky. He said, "What's the best stadium that you've played in your career?"
Well, obviously Wembley's up there. It's the old Wembley. This is just incredible. The Twin Towers. Anfield. Played Boxing Day game at Anfield when we drew 1-1. That was an amazing game. Tottenham's old ground. But Newcastle as well, obviously, that's got my one and only goal in the Premier League away at Newcastle, and to being a northeastern boy to go there and at the Gallagher end was a magical moment for me in my career as well.
I bet that was special, mate. I bet that was so special. Yeah. We've had a question from the Hartlepool follower, which says, "What do you make of the Dover situation?" Obviously, I don't know if people are aware, but obviously Dover haven't finished the season this season, and obviously Nicky's one of the staff members there, works alongside the manager Andy Tyler. So Nicky, what's the situation? How gutted are you that it hasn't finished the way that you and Andy had planned this season?
Yeah, obviously we're absolutely devastated. You know, we've seen the league and all the teams in the league playing games. Nothing worse. We want to be on that line. We want to be training week in, week out the players. We have a very young bunch of players, and obviously I think everybody knows that with the financial position of the club. But we've got some good young talent in there, and we want to make them better players. We want to see them develop and go on in their careers. But we're frustrated. I don't want to be sat here on a Saturday afternoon no disrespect, cooking. Instead of, I want to be on the side of it. I want to be in the dugout, on the side of the pitch and giving that encouragement and tactical awareness and everything, and my experience towards the players and manager, and helping the manager help them over. We didn't get off to a great start. 15 games in with 10 points. It's not ideal, but in between that, we had 3 bouts of COVID, so we were isolating for probably up to a month of the season as well. We had to isolate, and you got isolated for 10 days. So in between us stopping the season, we'd had a month of sidelines as well. Like, it was crazy. So we had to do more or less 3 little mini pre-seasons within the season. It's like no other season, but for me personally, I'm glad that Hartlepool are doing really well. They've got a great chance to get back in the league, and I always look out for their results.
Do you think they'll make it, Nick?
I think they've got a good chance, they've got good momentum. It's like everybody says at this stage of the season, momentum's key at this stage of the season. You can start slow, but if you can go into a run of games now, leading to try and go for that automatic spot, if they don't get that, like I say, if they can go through the playoffs, and they've got great form, and they've got a very good manager there, great experience at this level, and in the league as well. And he's got a great side, good hungry side that are doing really well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Charlie's doing a great job. They've got obviously points on the board. I know teams have got games in hand, but at this stage of the season, you'd rather have points on the board than the games. The games, they're coming thick and fast, and if you lose a couple or lose one game, it's you've lost momentum. You lose things. So Hartlepool at the minute at the top of the tree. They had a great result against Notts County on.
Exactly.
Fingers crossed they can get over the line. But like you just said there, if they get in the playoffs, for me, you wouldn't want to play Hartlepool. You know what I mean? If there's one team that you wouldn't want to play, you wouldn't want to play against a Dave Challoner side. You know what I mean? Because Charlie, throughout his career, non-league football to where he is now, he's been a very, very, very competitive manager and a good manager, and as a style of play. And as a player, Charlie was competitive with his long throws and the way that he played, and he's not changed. He's not changed much as a manager, to be fair.
Every second.
His long throws, mate, were horrific, mate. I remember playing at Tranmere.
They were bigger than Rory Delaps, weren't they? Bigger than Rory Delaps.
Oh well. I don't know if you remember, but at Prenton Park, they used to have gaps in the boards, just have a little bit of a further run up. So there'd be a gap every 10 metres. You know what I mean? So he'd run in the gap. He'd launch the throw. He used to launch a throw in from his own half in the box. That's how long his throw was. It was longer than Andy Legs, longer than Rory Delaps. Yeah. It was the longest thing I've ever seen. And they were strong in Carling Cups for years and years and years. They got to the final, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. We when we ever played Tranmere, we were told to try and keep the ball in play because they were less effective.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the way it was. Yeah.
Sprinting for balls that are going out for throw-ins to try and keep it. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Kicking the ball out. I think we have one more. I'll let you pick one more question since your sound's been a bit iffy tonight. You pick one more question from somebody, and then we'll wrap it up. Give Nick his evening back.
Indeed, I think we'll go with Will Malhus says. Who's the best player that you've ever played with and against?
Good question.
Cool. The best player I've ever played with is, there's two. Can I have two? You Dorkev and JJ Kocher.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yuri
outrageous.
Outrageous. Honestly, his first touch could beat 3 players. It was it's awareness and the weight of passes. Everything was so classy about him. You know, he got out the shower. It was classy. It was just everything was so good. But But JJ Kocher, on his day, he's just like, in training, I've never seen anybody do things with a ball that. He was just absolute magician. He could hide a ball from you, and then it would just pop up somewhere else on the pitch. It was ridiculous. And for him to arrive at Bolton, it was just like one of the world's best players at the time. To be sat in that dressing room with these kind of players coming from, no disrespect at the time, Gillingham, it was just incredible. I couldn't believe it. He had to pinch off at times. But best player that I've played against, I had to mark him. I think Ryan Giggs has got to be up there. He's definitely up there. He's like, I chased him a few times. He's outside. George Weah, he's another one we've played against at Chelsea. Drogba. My last year for Nottingham Forest was the FA Cup for Forest, and we played at Stamford Bridge, and he's got a hat trick, like 2 free kicks and a header. It was just unbelievable. Gerrard,
great players.
Gerrard as well at Anfield. Lampard. Where do you stop? There's no one real standout. These are unbelievable players in their own right. Roy Keane is ridiculous.
Yeah, and thing is, it's a testament to yourself, and exactly, it's a testament to yourself, Nick. Though these kind of programs, though, that you the platform that we give people an opportunity to speak about careers and stuff. I don't think you realise what you've done and what you've achieved and who you've played with and who you've played against until you start talking about it. That I didn't realise half the things that I'd probably had questions, and we started to dig deep and. Nobody likes talking about themselves, because it doesn't. I love listening to you talk. I love listening to Bishy last week. I'm a super fan. I love talking about football because my memories are just as good as anyone else's, and I love it because I know people's careers inside as much as they've had themselves, and I love it. But I think sometimes players forget what they've achieved. You know what I mean? You played in the Premier League. You played it. You're one of many who've played in every single level of league football. You know what I mean? Played every single division, which is a credit to you. You know what I mean? Because people Premier League players will see that as a negative, that I'm not going to play there, but people build themselves up and play at every level, and I think it's an absolute credit to you. I played at every level, and I'm proud to say that I've done that. You know what I mean? I didn't score it. Well, I didn't score that, but I wish. You know what I mean? That's probably, and I can't regret things that are not in my control, but these are proud moments. You know what I mean? The proud moments will go for me with scoring in the Premier League or playing for my country and things, because the level, the lower you go, I think, in football. You know what I mean? When you play in the Premier League, you get more time on the ball. There's better players, so they give you more time on the ball. They respect you more. When you drop down to low leagues, you get kicked. Your reputation means for nothing. Your name means nothing. You know what I mean? So it's just, I love listening to the stories. The stories are nightmare.
I totally agree what you said with that. Yeah. Totally agree, Andy, what you're saying there. Once you get in that Premier League, you do have more time on the ball, but it's when the ball changes hands, that's when you see the levels change,
Yeah.
Obviously, the lower down, the ball changes hands a lot more frequently, because obviously there's not as good technical players and players at that level, but the higher you go, you give that ball away or you make a mistake, you get punished more than 99 times out of 100, and that's the difference with the levels and higher up you go.
Yeah, agree. But sorry, this has been this is up there. I'm on the show, by the way. I've not laughed this much ever on this show. This has been up there. So if you ask me that question next week, which has been my favourite show, this is it. Sorry, everyone else.
Yeah, it's been very, very funny. I've had the pleasure of listening and not talking as much as normal as well. I sort of my audio and my video has been quite choppy, so I've been a bit quieter than usual this evening. But just a couple of quick scheduling notes. Friday night we'll be back with the Championship show, 7 o'clock kickoff. Sunday I have my story dropping with Welsh filmmaker, the man behind the documentary film Take Me Home, Mr. Johnny Owen, obviously a TalkSport host as well. It's a very, very good one, I've got to say. And we obviously had David Giles dropped yesterday. Me and Andy will be back next Monday with an all-new guest. And of course you can get all the different shows, audio and video, youtube.com and your favourite podcast platform. Just search Ace Podcast Nation. Nicky Southall, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and more. It's been amazing.
Cheers, guys. Good luck. Yeah,
Indeed.
cheers, guys. Well done.
Loved it, mate. Loved it, mate. Good luck with everything, Nicky, as well. You know what I mean? I know it's not hasn't been the season you wanted, and hope things work out for everybody. For you, Andy, the club. It's a nice part of the world, good club, and I do really, really hope everything works out. I really do.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, guys.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my Auntie Louise told Mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if Mummy or Daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and Mummy and Daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.